Dear friends, welcome back to the discourse on Rosmini's Five Wounds of the Holy Church. Today we will look into the fourth wound, the election of bishops placed in the hands of civil governments. At the time of Rosmini, emperors, kings, and other political leaders had essentially acquired the authority to choose bishops for their nation's diocese through force or had been granted that authority by the church under force for over 1,000 years. The authority to confirm their appointments was granted to the Pope or it was set aside for him. In fact, Rosmini highlights this as the wound in this chapter. However, Rosmini makes the argument that the church should return to the earlier practice of having bishops chosen by both clergy and the people. This is a very painful historical account of how a once free church became enslaved to the civil governments. One of the main reasons that led to the book's contamination was this second issue, which sparked theological debate and people's thoughts right up until the present day. According to Rosmini, the people and the clergy had a divine right to choose their own shepherd. Pope Pius IX urged him to elaborate on this theological problem, which appeared to declare the election of bishops nominated solely by rulers with Pope's final approval invalid. The same request was made by other theologians and bishops, and Rosmini in fact followed by publishing 3 letters addressed to Canon Giuseppe Gatti. A distinction between the divine moral right and the divine constitutive right. The right of clergy and people to elect bishop is a divine moral right, and the violation does not render it invalid. The Pope can, in fact, grant clergy and people the power to bypass this right if other important factors demand it. Accordingly, the Council of Trent had declared that the election of bishops chosen by civil authority were legitimate if the Pope had approved them. In contrast to the divine moral right of clergy and people to elect their own bishops, the violation of divine constitutive right does make the action being violated invalid. Rosmini therefore claims only a divine moral right for the election of bishops by clergy and people. But it is very serious right of divine origin and therefore it ought to be exercised unless other very urgent considerations intervene. Rosmini justifies the popes who permitted the interference of civil governments in the election of bishops on the ground that they believed permission to be the lesser evil. As far as the choice of bishops was concerned, the church never spontaneously offered the nomination of episcopal sees of certain states to the lay power unless constrained by bitter circumstances and after long struggles to make such a sacrifice. So, what about today? Most civil governments have thankfully surrendered the privilege of electing their own bishops, recognizing the freedom of the church in such important matter. We say most because we are aware that state interference has not ceased everywhere. For instance, in China, Cuba, and states with a totalitarian regime. But what can we say about the divine moral right of clergy and people to elect their bishops? We need to be clear that Rosmini did not mean that people have a direct part in the government of the church. Rather, Rosmini proposed a return to the ancient custom of election by clergy and people. This only gave the people the opportunity to expressing their opinion of the candidates, of testifying to their good character, and of welcoming the person enjoying their confidence. So, in this way, Rosmini also lists 4 fundamental principles in the election of bishops, which he argues can be fulfilled by the church, not by the state. The first principle is the best person available should be chosen as bishop. The second is the priest chosen should be known, loved, wanted by those whom he has to govern. The third principle is the priest chosen as bishop should have been enrolled for a lengthy period among the clergy of the diocese he is to govern, and not to be sent there as a stranger from a distant country. The fourth and the final fundamental principle which Rosmini speaks of is that, generally speaking, only the moral body or moral person concerned is capable of judging what is best for itself. Conclusion: Antonio Rosmini's fourth wound of the Holy Church is the election of bishops being controlled by civil governments rather than the Church itself. This, Rosmini believed, lessened the Church's autonomy and spiritual authority. Rosmini therefore advocated for the divine right of clergy and people in electing bishops, emphasizing the importance of ecclesiastical independence. By placing bishop election in the hands of civil governments, the Church actually risked becoming over-influenced by worldly powers, compromising its divine mission. Therefore, Rosmini advocated this divine right of clergy and people in electing bishops. Remember that Rosmini did not mean that people have a direct part in the government of the Church. Rather, he proposed only a return to the ancient customs of election by clergy and people, where they only gave the people the opportunity of expressing their opinion of the candidates, of testifying their good character, and of welcoming the person, enjoying their confidence. So I hope you are clear more or less with the fourth wound. So thank you so much for hearing. Take care.